All right, the TI-88. I thought about introducing this with like music from 2001.
Raise the microphone a little bit.
That's fine. Everybody can hear me, I assure you. Ryan, can you hear me? I've never been told I'm too quiet, so I'm not worried about that. Where, you know, it would be the dun, 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 that kind of thing, but there were a few too many models I'm going to show as we lead up to it to do that. Why talk about the TI-88? 40 years ago next week, it was canceled. 40 years ago. And you just don't have all that much information out there other than pictures of the circuit board and a catalog of different serial numbers on a couple of the circuits. And I wanted to talk about why TI canceled it. Last night at dinner, somebody said, why'd they do that? We now know from internal Texas Instruments documents exactly why they canceled it. The other question I want to answer, and the one this afternoon, is what would it have been like had it come out? How would using it have been? What features did it have? What was good about the machine? What was bad about the machine? And then to borrow some stuff that David Ramsey and I are in kind of competition with, what was really ugly? He's got a great presentation coming up later on the SR60, which is an earlier cousin of it. So this is the history and the go, no-go decision. So the environment, 1974, this is where the 2001 music would have started. Dun, right? 1974. In 75, TI kind of tried to hit back with the not well-designed SR52, but they both had card reader calculators out. HP said, oh yeah, take that, and came out with the HP 67. Next year later, TI came out with arguably a better, more capable machine in terms of RAM, having a plug-in module. I mean, there were a lot of things that it could do that the 67 couldn't touch, but it likely broke 6 months after you bought it. So there was all that kind of thing. But I mean, this was a good competitor right here. So 76, 90, 77, then the waiting began. HP took 3 years after the 67 to come out with the HP 41. And you notice I've got a question mark over there. 1979, 1980. This is where the Jeopardy clock music should start. Dun, 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 dun. Right? Where was TI? Where was TI? Come on, guys. It had been 5 years at this point since the 59 and 58 had come out. What was TI up to? It turned out that even though the 58, 59 had been out since the mid-1977 time period, yeah, they came out with the 58C in 1979, a few weeks before HP came out with the 41C. The 58C was a really nice upgrade. If you wanted a very cheap $100 programmable that didn't forget everything when you turned it off, that wasn't bad. That was a pretty capable machine. But look, the 41C came out the very next month. So HP changed the game with the 41C, LCD, alpha, modular system, all sorts of the features that HP had in the 41C. Surely, TI was up to something that's going to be really good. It's going to be really, really good. But the rest of 79 came and went, 1980, 81, I mean, what was TI up to? What was TI up to? It turns out TI had been working on what they internally called Project X. Oh boy, I tell you, that is a code name. Project X. What they wanted to do back in 1977, this again is from internal sources, that a retired engineer who has passed away had an estate sale that were found. They had wanted to provide upgraded leadership product to replace the TI-59. They wanted to expand problem-solving concepts by means of a calculating device. They wanted to incorporate state-of-the-art technologies, system design, system expansion capabilities. This is pretty good stuff. I imagine HP had similar ideas at some point going on right through here. And then to simplify the ease of use and provide market expansion among professional users, whether technical or non-technical. The source for that is from the 1978-79 LCD Calc Product X, page 27, and that's on your thumb drive, that document, if you want to read through it. What it was going to involve from a technical perspective was a temperature compensation circuit for display contrast. As the temperature changed, they were attempting to keep the display readable. Dual pointers to access memory faster. Rather than having to shift where the CPU thought it was going to have dual pointers. I'm reminded almost of the circuit pointers on the 65 way back. But they were really attempting to have a fast machine with system design. They had a dual bus in the CPU in order to send two values to the arithmetic unit at the same time, again to operate on faster. They had a special fast ROM on chip to do added shift loops placed in there, which they were hoping would reduce multiply times by 50%. They really were trying to do something technologically revolutionary because they were a chip design company. They knew how to do all this stuff. Again, that's on page 18 of that same document. Their hope was to achieve a 70% higher density of things on the chip than had ever been achieved before. And they also, this one, I'm sorry, I had to laugh, a lockup prevention circuit. Yeah, right. This is going to have a way to not ever have the machine lock up. Sure. All of this being laid out in late 1977, 78. Essentially, once the 59 and 58 were launched, they got to work. 77 and 78. It was going to include an equation operating system, an EOS. The equation could be entered without execution, edited. The equation could be evaluated with newly entered data or previously entered data into variables in an equation. And the display would scroll sideways when you got to the end of it as you were entering an equation bigger than the display size on this machine. The machine display was going to be a 16-character 5x7 dot matrix, LCD. It was going to have a full alphanumeric display, and you would be able to do equations in the display. And one cool feature, I get ahead of myself, you could trace program execution in the display as it was running. Did not need a printer. And you could also prompt in the display. More flexible user memory. They changed this slightly before it came out, but they wanted essentially 1,000 steps or 125 data registers built into the machine with partitioning available to the user. Sounds like the 59. They were going to have a solid state software ROM approach, plug-in modules to include RAM or ROM. The RAM was the new thing for TI at this point. Memory was going to be expandable potentially to 3,000 steps or 375 registers. ROMs were going to hold 15,000 steps with up to 99 programs per ROM and 10,000 steps per program. How would you like to debug that thing? 10,000 steps in one program. TI knew the project was ambitious. I mean, they were pushing the envelope 1977 in several different areas. Semiconductor process, which they knew, but they were pushing the envelope with the fast ROM and the dual buses and all that other kind of stuff. The architecture of the system and custom chip design. 3 areas they were attempting to advance the state of the art at the same time. The portion that came out as a calculator was going to be called the TI-88. Each area carried risks. If they're trying to push the semiconductor process, they might make mistakes. If they were trying to push the custom chip design, it might not work. Doing all 3 at once magnified your risks, right? But they were a chip management company. They knew how to do this. It wasn't like they were an instrument company up in the, somewhere else. They made chips. They know how to do all this stuff. The problem, of course, is some might call that kind of attitude hubris. In this case, it came back to bite them. Problem solving became an iterative process. Which area created the problem? Because we just upgraded one area, came out with some changes over here. What's the root cause analysis? It's a different thing when you're pushing the envelope because you might have multiple things interacting, causing your problem. They had a horrible time, based on internal documents, tracing bugs. Really, really hard time for them. Even in 1982, that's 5 years after that original document, TI found and fixed several circuit problems that only became apparent once they had figured out all the stuff supposedly over in the circuit design process and had it working. Okay. You got to be careful when you're developing stuff. Rather than let's upgrade one part of it, right, all at once is asking for it. From the start of the project in 1977, TI spent a lot of money and time over the next 6 years. If you look at that, it's got, my apologies ladies, manpower on the chart, broken out in several things, and OST and tooling. They used 157 man years on this project and 11 million in tooling and other expenses total in that bottom right corner. Look how the project seemed to kick into high gear in 1980. Did anything happen in 1979 that might have made TI get a little more interested in doing something? Yes.
June.
Sometime in the middle of it, right? Now CPG, by the way, was the consumer products group in terms of how they were allocating their costs. Think of the stuff that's out there with the other competitors and all this kind of stuff. SC is the semiconductor. OST was the hardest one to figure out. Objective, strategy, and tactics, obviously. And that included market research, design, product specification, and qualification costs. I tracked that down with a young accounting manager who had worked in the Texas Instruments Lubbock plant back in this time. He knew what the TI-88 was and were making chips for it. He's the one that told me what OST was. But look at that. That's a lot of effort. And yet nothing came out, right? Along the way, the TI-88 simulator, not a beta product, the simulator, I had no idea what that was, had to be computerized, was placed into the hands of alpha and beta testers, including an individual named Tony Barlow. This guy had prior experience with the 65, the 67, the 52, and the 59. This is no newbie here. He knew RPN and he knew TI-AOS. He was a beta tester. We have his beta tester review that he submitted to TI. Here are some of his comments about the 88. The TI-88 is the most whimsical, arbitrary, difficult programmable I have ever attempted to work with. Now it takes some guts. Having been a beta tester, it takes some guts to tell that to the people who are sending you goodies to try out. Here's another comment. The one thought which comforts me is that I won't ever have to use it again after this project is over. Wow, right? My experience with the TI-59 was counterproductive, causing me to underestimate the challenge of the TI-88. Now, who were they going to market this thing to? TI-59 users. And he says, having used the 59 made this harder. The TI-88 is fundamentally the wrong product for introduction into the market at the wrong time. Wow. Now you have the entire 6-page document on the thumb drive, his review. He also said implied multiplication, which TI put into the thing in equation mode and in programming, should be killed. He listed that as his top 3 recommendations. Kill implied multiplication, kill implied multiplication 3 times. And here's what he said about it. Even your own algorithm designers are not sure how it works. I wish I'd met this guy, I really do. But and this is 1981, late 81, early 81 when he's doing this. But TI kept going. We ain't gonna let no crazy beta tester tell us what to do. They announced the TI-88 on May 26, 1982. That was a couple of weeks or a week or 2 before CES. They wanted to get it out there so people could see it at CES. They had a working prototype of the shippable version, was available only a days to weeks before CES. Jake and Richard, Jake tells me, you guys played with one on the counter at CES.
4 days?
Yeah, for 4 days they were playing with it at CES, okay? Back in 2011, I spoke to the former TI employee, C.B. Wilson, who was involved in getting that prototype ready. And he said it was a horrible experience. They lived in the lab leading up to CES. If you've ever sent something to a trade show and it's a new product, you may know what I'm talking about here. But he said it was a horrible thing. They got a few of them working well enough to put on the display. I mean, and they had already announced it. Even after announcing at CES, TI then, a couple of weeks later, found what they described as a divide by 3 CPU problem, right? That would require at least one additional mask revision of the processor. Now, a divide by 3 does not mean that if you did 4 divided by 3, you got 7. That's not what I'm talking about. It was some bizarre state where it would divide by 3 internally, not to the outside, and do it wrong. I don't know what that was, but that was bad enough. They say, this is not going to work. We've got to revise the processor. Getting to market in 1982 or even early 83 assumed nothing else was wrong. If you revise the CPU to fix this divide by 3, do you create any other problems because of interactions with these other areas? Remember, iterative. You may fix this and that may have been hiding something else. It was a risky situation. The clock continued to tick. They'd already announced this in May of 82. So what to do? A divide by 3 problem. We've announced it. What do we do? From a 9/15/1982 TI-88 program discontinuation notice internal document that's also on the thumb drive, their choices were they could go ahead. They could continue, press on, press on. They could fix the current logic problems, create new samples, new prototypes, and analyze if anything else was wrong. Does this show any other problems? We fix that divide by 3 and we got a divide by 5 problem, and who knows? Who knows? Shipment would be possible in January of 83 only if one round of fixes had to be made. If they found something else, that's another 6 months. Another 6 months. Incremental costs of 1.3 to 1.7 million would be required just for the inventory of chips and everything else in the revision to fix this divide by 3 problem. And they didn't yet know really how far away they were from a shippable product. Or they could cancel, right? That was if they were going to fix it, 1.3 to 1.7 and hope for the best. Or they could cancel. Now, if they cancel, that's a great loss of face. They've already announced this thing to the press. They already showed it to Jake and Richard, the only 2 who went by to look at it at CES. And we know Richard would write about it. I don't know, right? But that's a big loss of face to say, no, never mind, just kidding. Catalogs. In mid-September of 82, catalogs were already being printed with the 88 in there. The ACI catalog had it running in the catalog through the fall of next year. Spiegel's had it running in the catalog through March of 83. Bennett Brothers had it running through September of next year. Olympic Sales, many of us remember them, they managed to get that pulled from the next printing. They made it by a week, and Olympic pulled it out of the catalog. Pennies, they got to them and got them to pull it out of the spring 83 catalog. Bloomingdale's pulled it out of their Christmas catalog. And by the way, some of these catalogs apparently had it in there. Help me find them. I'd like to have those pages out of those catalogs. I've searched for PDFs online, it's not there. So the ACI to Spiegel's may be the easiest one to find. I mean, there's Spiegel's catalogs floating around at Grandma's house from this time frame, I'm sure. If you find that, please let me know. I'd like to see what it looked like.
HHC did not have it.
HHC did not have it. The other problem they had if they canceled is for a year or more, companies had been developing custom software to run on ROMs on the 88. They had these simulators and they had developed their own 15K programs to do whatever, right? I mean, HP had been doing that with the 41. TI did that a great deal, a lot of effort on the 59 with custom software, maybe even more custom ROMs for the 59 than the 41 ever had at that time. What are these customers going to say with, never mind, right? They had to make these customers whole somehow or other. That's a problem. The write-off, if they canceled it, would be about $3 million. So you're going to go to your boss. We've been working on this for 5 years. We've spent $11 million. I need $3 million to kill it. TI indicated that the market in keystroke programmable calculators had peaked at around 600,000 units in 1981. To my knowledge, we've never had a market estimate for how many units there were until these documents came to light. It had peaked at 600,000, which was up from 579 and they expected it to decline. The peak 600, 500 the next year, so it was in a declining space, right? And they thought that one of the reasons it was declining is people had suddenly started focusing on handheld basic language machines. And here's the quote they had. The introduction by HP, this is in the cancellation memo, of the HP 75 of basic language is confirmation of the trend. One of the reasons they used to cancel the 88, even HP thinks the world's going basic. So why should we doubt? I mean, if HP's doing it, why do we want to take this risk? And so they also had said that HP put it at $995. Remember the 75 was so expensive? Because HP, they thought, did not want to cause any waves on the entrenched, their word, entrenched HP 41 position in the market. Okay? What a statement in a TI document. And that again is from the program discontinuation PDF. What they do? They killed it. And they abandoned the under $100 programmable calculator, the over $100 programmable calculator market. The decision has been made to cancel the TI-88 program and pursue what? The programmable language portable computer. And to accelerate effort by adding, look at this, a basic language machine to introduce a Pascal and Fortran.
They did the Pascal for the 74.
They did the Pascal, Fortran never made it. That would have been interesting. Do loops on a programmable little device, right, David? It was a TI-74, or I got a picture of it later. TI-74 plug-in ROM, it was Learn Pascal, one-line display. That would have been, I used to teach Pascal way back, but Fortran would have been really interesting. I'd have to check one of those down. All right, here's some other things they did. That's for the same discontinuation notice. Why did they cancel it? They specifically lay out the reasons. Due to difficulties with the 88, the costs and risks have grown significantly. We are now in the position of spending more money at increasing risk to enter a declining market at a later time. They should have canceled it with this kind of background. That would have been dumb, flat out dumb, to go spend more money at greater risk, which might not even work, to enter a space they thought was shrinking anyway. So, good job. They should have killed it taking this long to get to it, it seems to me. And since HP had that over $100 market with the 41, how much of that market were they thinking they could capture anyway? Not enough to take that risk. That was their conclusion. They thought the world was going basic, right? Would anyone want a super TI-59? Oh, look, don't say no. They might have wanted a super TI-59, but not in 1982. Because that's what the 88 was going to be, was a super duper TI-59. You might have wanted one of those potentially in 1978. Imagine the 88 in 1978 or something, but 1983? Probably not. So TI decided to launch a marketing campaign based on the fact that TI believed programmable calculators were obsolete. If we're not going to make it, the reason is because nobody wants them. That's why we have decided and never have been really doing anything in this space. Make your narrative fit your circumstances, and that's what they did. Again, that's a source from a September 10th memo. Richard?
That attitude is also a part of the problem they had going to China to say to the Chinese, you need all these TI machines in your country.
Back in today's market, the graphic market.
Same attitude,
Absolutely. Here's another thing of what they were looking at doing. This is from an 81 to 82 advanced language computer planning document for replacing the 88. They said the cost of memory and storage are dropping so fast that it's no longer necessary to make programmable calculators focused on really efficient register processing, right? That's, that kind of stuff. So what we can do is to put out user-friendly and well-understood higher-level languages with computer-type architectures that could be applied to these at only really a small incremental cost. They're making their case now. They're convincing themselves we need a handheld basic machine, is what they're doing. This meant that, right? Handheld size is sacrificed, you don't go small, to have a better user experience. You need a full-size keyboard or a bigger keyboard. The standard computer interface, typewriter style, needs to be substituted for a dedicated function per key calculator. Languages should be loadable in the machine. You're not just recording keystrokes, more or less. And that's a basic Pascal and Fortran, but no evidence Fortran was ever done. This strategy they thought would impact 4 separate market areas. TI-59 owners, they were going to go after 41 owners. That's called out in their document. Computer users, and who are these people? Naive individuals. You can use this portable language basic computer to run your microwave. I don't know. But bizarre. I would never refer to potential customers naive.
That's the ones that saw it in the Spiegel catalog.
The Spiegel catalog. So the direction of the market is clear, and with HP's announcement of its HP 75 basic language computer, it has been reaffirmed. HP had been talking about the 75. It came out a week before this cancellation. HP helped kill the 88, which is humorous to me. In addition, blah, blah, we should be able to capture 41 potentials. The confusion the HP 75 brings to their product line, combined with TI's commitment to portable computers that are going to be cheaper, will pull a great deal of potential 41 sales to the TI line. The 75 being at $995, what does that mean, right? And the 41 at $300, we're going to come out with a $150 basic machine, we'll get them all. That's what they told themselves. Who knew how important the timing of the 75C would turn out to be to killing the 88? So, but it was also part of a broader scheme to develop these portable language computers and everything else. What I've got next are some of the original design graphics and pictures of what they wanted to do. These are, again, internal. Sometimes, this was an early Project X. Sometimes early designs show a lot of similarity to the current products, right? This is essentially a TI-59. If you look at that graphic and had a 59 in your hand, it's the same with one change. They replaced the learn key on the 3rd row with the alpha button. We want to make this, we don't put letters, but that's significant. We want to put alpha in a 59. And that turns out to be their guiding decision. Everything they did was to take the 59, which is nearly a perfect product, we're going to stick letters in it, and everybody will want one. That seems to have really been their choices here. This was called the RM1000. Maybe it's the replacement machine 1000. I'm not sure what RM stands for. A later design shows movement toward what the 88 was going to look like. This is the 88 at the bottom. It has that wedge shape. It had room for some plug-in modules and all this kind of stuff. 2 modules, side by side in the back, turned on its back. 2 modules. It was destined to turn out to be the 88, but there is some documentation from May of 82 that talks about a little brother to the 88, the TI-86. That's not the 86 they eventually sold. This was essentially a Super 58. They were going to come out with 2 products. The 88 we were going to be talking about, the 86. The 86 had half the memory, it had no sound, and had, what was the rest of it? Only 1 port instead of 2. But that's a casual reference. There's no sign of anything ever having been made for that. Now, look at this picture of the 88 over here. I love it because it has 2 backstep keys. There's a backstep key right there, and there's a backstep key right there. Boy, those designers were really on it, weren't they? Send this to senior management, and you got a backstep key here and a backstep key right there. There you go.
Could that lower one be RS2?
No, it might should have been RST, but that is a B.
Okay.
That is a B. The RM2000 was going to be a horizontal based machine, and this was the first one, essentially a calculator key, a typewriter keyboard, right? That was going to run some kind of basic. Here's a better picture of this. So this evolved eventually into the TI-74 horizontal basic and the TI-95, which was more calculator looking and oriented. But you can see, right, a line number, let mortgage life equal 35 years. I mean, they were going after basic. This is one of the things that eventually turned into, but this was 86. This was a couple of years after the killing of the 88. This was the TI-74. I've known people that bought these to level tables or keep doors open, but it's not that bad.
It has very good basic.
It's not a bad basic at all. It's really cheap. People don't want it, so you can find them on eBay and not mortgage your house again. But the TI-74, the basic calc, this is the one that had the Pascal cartridge available. This is the TI-95. It came out around the same time as the T18C with the little dedicated, menu choices, right? The soft menus in the 28 series. But that's a calculator keyboard. It's got a hyperbolic key in the middle of nowhere near the trig functions. Sorry. Think, people, think. But the TI-95, then you get to ads. I put some of these in here from '86 showing the TI-74. Hey, it's on sale. So lots of goodies. This was the RM3000. This was going to be the big brother, more like a small laptop of some kind. A real QWERTY keyboard. The 74 is not touch typable. You can't do that. But this one you were going to be able to multi-line screen or 4 or 5 line screen, right? I mean, that could be kind of nice. Do a little budget walk around with it. Looks like a work slate or something else from that period. Other designs they were thinking about with a tilted display. I mean, that might not have been a bad thing. I'm not sure why there are so many keys on the numeric keypad over there. Another one, I mean, they were really trying to imagine what the future was going to look like back in the late 70s. And then this guy, again, the RM3000. This evolved into the CC70, the Compact Computer 70, which was never made and sold, and the CC40, the Compact Computer 40, which was sold for about 15 months. The CC40 failed in part because the peripherals were never sold that worked. Had a wafer tape drive of some kind. TI knew how to do it, and it was never reliable. Mass storage? Who needs mass storage? And so it failed. But that might have been something good to have, right? I mean, why not just have a little thing like that, especially when everything else was like a K-Pro. This is a mock-up of that Compact Computer 70. This is a picture from the DataMath webpage. Georg's got a lot of good information on all this stuff. That does not work. That is a fake display on it. It never had a working model that anyone has seen. Whoops. Here's the CC40. A nice little machine, plug-in cartridges up here, upgraded to 18K. I think it came with maybe 6K or something built into it. You can get them upgraded. It was a fine machine, but it had its issues. One is the placement of the enter key is right where you expect a shift key to be in the bottom corner. So you're always hitting the enter key thinking it's a shift. And it had one unified program space. If you accidentally type new and hit enter, everything's gone. Bad. You got a 10K program, whoops, and mass storage, whoops, not there, right? CC40. So I may talk about that next year. That's an interesting little machine. It had some ads. An advertisement over here talks about the wafer tape drive. I mean, it was sold. This looks like pennies, I think, right here. Service merchandise down at the bottom. All that kind of stuff. That is the end of part 1. The end of part 1. In part 2, we're going to talk about, believe it or not, details of the TI-88 in terms of features, usage, example programs that I finally managed to write and get working. We're going to dig in. Please, it's after lunch. Please have caffeine for lunch. As you can tell, I've had a lot already today. Question, Jim?
So it's interesting just from your timeline, if you look at the TRS-80 Model 100, that came out in 1983. It looked almost exactly like what TI was proposing. Yet Radio Shack had already planned to introduce that product. Multi-line display.
You had the Model 100, Radio Shack, you had the NEC, which was also very similar to it. So that was people thought that's what customers wanted. So TI wanted to make one of those. Yeah, Brian?
Just kind of amusing that, in 1983, they had another model, the 86, that they were providing. Well, as it turns out, the 88 got 86.
Yes, indeed. The 88 got 86. That's great. Yes, Kim?
It seems interesting. There's no references yet of their competition from Sharp, Casio, Nashville Semiconductor. Because I believe, late 70s, they were already the 1210, the 1211. I mean, there were other things there besides what they're talking about with going to basic that just, were they ignoring it or?
In the question on, what about the other competitors, the basic machine, the PC 1211 and all that kind of thing. In that beta tester memo, the Barlow memo, he talks about the basic machines. And that's one reason he said that 88 is the wrong product at this time, because he thought the world really should go basic. Why would you want to struggle with those lower level details now that you have enough memory, right? And you can let the machine take care of some of that for you. So they were aware of that, but again, they were 5 years into the 88. What guts and stuff did that take to kill it?
So they did recognize it's just not referenced.
They did. You're quite right. That's a very good point, but I cut that out lest I impinge upon everyone's patience.
Thank you.
Any other questions about this? Jake?
I was just going to mention that it's ironic that in these memos they said nobody wants the keystroke programmable anymore, and yet TI turned and changed their mind, came out with the 81, 82, 83, 84, which does that. So maybe it was a different set of employees or something. And
They're not keystroke.
They got their mind back.
Well, the basic stuff didn't work very well. I mean, the 74 didn't do well at all. The CC40 didn't do well at all. So TI's big thing, we're going to steal all these naive customers. Maybe naive customers are the ones that bought them.
I think what convinced TI was the 75 didn't do very well at all.
True on the 75. I mean, that wasn't really a great, successful machine. But by the time you get to the 81 and the 80 and the graphing models, it was graphing.
Yeah.
And that was the big selling point into schools. So I think it may have been, maybe some of the employees involved in this didn't work there very long. I don't know. But I'm just amazed, though, at the detailed internal documentation that we have from TI. The thumb drive has, what's in that TI folder? Is it like 4 gig?
Yeah.
4 gig, 4.2 gig of internal documents. I've only quoted from a couple of them, right? So read to your heart's content. What an amazing treasure trove found at an estate sale.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed because the employee I talked to, it was his estate sale.
When was that?
The estate sale was like a year ago, year and a half. I knew that engineer had an 88, and I kept trying to think over those last 10 years, how do I talk him out of this? But his family knew that it was very, very rare. It wasn't going to happen.
So did you buy the stuff, or who bought it at the estate?
There's an individual who had posted it to the HP Museum once, I think, and to some of the Facebook groups, bought it, and he sold some things he got from the estate on eBay, things like that. I'm really thankful that he knew enough to keep it, because we don't have anything like this from HP. We don't have any of this kind of internal stuff. We've got some HP employees that have told us from time to time, but I don't think anybody's got some. This is an internal, memo with information like that. Richard.
Do we know who the person was that claimed to have spent $3,000 for a TI-88 on the HP Museum? I have a quote in my presentation.
I don't know. I know the people that buy those in the marketplace. I mean, if you throw one out here in the middle of the floor in this conference, even though it's a TI, people are going to be fighting each other to get it just because it's rare. I mean, that's it. Yeah. So when you only have maybe 20 of them known to exist, tops, that's what drives it up. But my goal this afternoon is, I said, I want to use it, my daily machine, for 3 months. What would that have been like? That's what I want to try to answer. And I have tried to discover as much. My apologies. There's going to be all sorts of things on this stuff this afternoon. Just have an open mind. That's all I ask. Have an open mind. But listen, any other questions? We got plenty. Eddie, one more Eddie.
Was it the cancellation of 88? I also remember that at the time that TI had the TI-99 4A, and I remember, if I remember correctly, that computer did not sell well. Was that a factor into
The-
this cancellation?
The 99.4A is mentioned in some of the documentation, and there's stuff about the 99.4A and that treasure trove of the 4 gig of documents too. That had to have, I mean, when they killed the 88 and started coming out with these other things, everything was falling apart at TI. You know, Bill Cosby wasn't able to sell the 99.4A, cutting the price to $100. I think I saw them for $100 at the very end of it. Even then, I never bought one. $100 for it.
They actually sold a heck of a lot of 99 4As because of that price drop, but they were losing money on each one and making it up in volume. You know, that business plan is never long-term viable.
But it's an easy one.
Back here.
Okay, so the TI-99, that was my first computer. I still use that. It's an awesome computer. But what was going on? It looks like a few months after this. This looks like it predates the decline of the TI-99 by about 6 months. It was Commodore. It was Jack Tramiel at Commodore going after TI and cutting the price of the Commodore 64 that killed the TI-99.
Yeah, other factors were going in, but again, it happened. He's totally correct. But the whole thing from a TI perspective, everything was falling apart in this division. I mean, I don't know what the income statement looked like for the year or two after this, but it was ugly. It was ugly. Listen, thanks everybody. Richard's got the next thing after a break. What time is it anyway? I don't know. Thank you.